Welcome to the channel. Today we will be learning how to animate a vector illustration. Let's start by acquiring one of this graphic elements. You can pretty much find one in any of these websites that are for graphic designers and video editors. Just keep in mind that some websites require a subscription. I personally use FreePic. They have a ton of graphic elements that you can choose from, and for only $24 a month, I think it's worth the price. And the other way to get a vector illustration is, if you are already working, let's say, in a project with a designer, and they sent you the vector file. Just make sure that the file is a AI or EPS file, otherwise you won't be able to animate it. Let's start by preparing our file for animation. So we're going to open it up in Adobe Illustrator, and the first thing we're going to do is to separate each element into its own layer, so we can animate them inside of After Effects. As you can see, if I click here at any object, and I drag it, we'll see that everything gets selected, and that is not what we want. What we want to do is to animate each object individually. So we're going to start off by opening the Layers panel. If you don't see it, just go to Window here at the top, and scroll down, and you should be able to find it. As you can see here, we have one layer where everything is grouped. To ungroup it, we're going to click here at this little arrow and just keep going down. And as we can see here, each one of these objects are in its own group. To ungroup them, click the first group that contains the rest of the other groups, which in this case is this one right here. And we'll come here and click at this little 3-line icon, and we'll click on Release to Layers, Sequence. And as we can see here, we have all elements in different layers with different colors. All we gotta do is select everything and drag them to the top, just like so. And we can just delete this empty layer. Now that we have all of our objects isolated in their own layer, we can save this as an Illustrator file, and it's now ready to use for our animation. So now let's open up Adobe After Effects and create a new project. We're gonna start off by importing our vector file, so double-click here in the project panel, or Command-I in your keyboard, and we're going to select our vector animation file. Click Open, and choose Composition. So then you'll get this composition here in the project panel. Double-click it, and you'll have the Illustrator project imported into After Effects. What we can do to make this graphic into a video format is to click the composition, go to Composition here at the top, click Composition Settings, and here we can change the width and height of our format. You can also choose a predetermined preset here by clicking here and choosing one of these options. In my case, I will choose Social Media Landscape HD. Click OK. What we can do now is to adjust the vector so it fits the composition by scaling everything up. Select the background and hit S on your keyboard and just drag it to the right until it fits. Do the same with all the other elements. Don't forget to select the Rasterize button on all the elements in case it looks blurry. If you can't find the button, hit the toggle switches here at the bottom. Before we start animating, we need to adjust the anchor points of each layer so that they don't animate from the center of the composition. To fix this, click the pan behind icon right here at the top and drag the anchor point to the center of the object, just like so. There's a lot of ways you can animate graphic elements, but today, I want to talk about the repeatable type, which is the animation that goes forever, and the overshoot animation, which is the extra movement that bounces back. We'll also do some basic masking and use some basic expressions, such as the wiggle effect. To get started, we're going to select the computer layer and hit P for position on your keyboard. But instead of creating a keyframe like we normally do, we're going to use an expression for the wiggle effect. So hit Alt-right-click on the stopwatch, and we'll open up the menu button. And here we're going to go to Property and choose Wiggle. Here we can change the frequency and amplitude, let's say 2 and 5. And there you have it. We have this nice wiggle animation in the computer that gives the illusion that it's floating. One thing I also want to do is to animate this graph window so it pops up. Let's start by selecting the layer and hitting S on your keyboard for scale. We're going to add a keyframe, and we'll drag it to the right, And we'll add another keyframe at the beginning, and we'll change the value to 0, so it makes this pop-up effect. To make this an overshoot animation, we'll select the end of the keyframe, hit Command-C on your keyboard, and we'll paste it on the left, just like so, and change the value to, let's say, 190. To give it a more smoother effect, we can also add easy ease to the keyframes by selecting all keyframes, right-click, Keyframe Assistant, and selecting Easy Ease. We can also take this a bit further by selecting the end of the keyframe and going to the graph editor and adjusting these small anchor points, just to give it a smoother animation. So now, the last thing I want to talk about is masking. Let's create a loading effect to these circles by creating a mask. And for that, we're going to use the pen tool. Let's start by selecting the pen tool. We're going to draw over the colored circle, and we're going to give it a stroke that covers the entire colored part. We'll drag the shape layer to the top of the circle layer, and we'll open the Contents panel. Select the Add icon and select Trim Paths. This is where we start animating the line we just drew. Create a keyframe on the start clock and change the value to 100%. And drag it to the right. Then create another keyframe and set the value to 0. As you can see, the line now moves from beginning to end. To create a mask, go to the toggle switch, and by selecting the circle layer, drag this little whip icon like so, and parent it to the shape layer. If the animation is inverted, all you gotta do is select the invert icon. So there's tons of different types of animations that you can do with vector graphics, but I invite you to create your own work. That way you can practice and develop your skills. So that is the end of this tutorial. Please hit that like button and subscribe for more content. And always, stay creative.